Orphan Train Rider, One Boy's True Story, Chapter 9, Lee Finds a Home, Part 2. I will begin on page 56. I just wasn't hungry, he says. I was willing to give them credit for at least acting interested in me, but the interest was all theirs. As far as I was concerned, the sooner I could get out of there, the better. It was growing dark as they showed Lee around the grounds and the barns and introduced him to the horses. Ben pointed to a wood pile and asked Lee to stack some wood for the kitchen stove on the back porch. Lee was immediately suspicious. I remembered that farmer who felt my muscles and teeth. It looked to me like the Nailings thought they had found themselves a chore boy. I turned to him and said, "Do it yourself. I didn't come here to work for you." I think my voice was really angry because it sort of surprised me. They both looked shocked. Ben grabbed me by the arm and gave me a hard swat on the behind. He said, "Now look here, boy. If you're going to be part of this family, you'll pull your weight. That stove has to be fed, and that's to be your job, and don't you ever talk to your elders like that. I think your disrespect went too far." Well, that was too much for me. I refused to talk to either of them. I figured I had nothing to lose because I wasn't going to be there in the morning. That was for sure. I meant to run away that very night. Later that evening, Ollie showed him around his new bedroom. "Go to bed now, and we'll get a fresh start in the morning," she said, smiling. Lee looked around in awe. He had never had a room of his own before. Often he had shared his bed. But he still was suspicious. I decided it was just a trick to soften me up before they put me to work, and I was determined I wouldn't fall for it. He climbed onto the big feather bed and sat down into its softness. Ollie came back and sat by him. She said she knew he was tired and she hoped he would sleep well. Then she tucked the covers around him and gave him a kiss on the cheek before she left the room. I couldn't remember the last time anyone had kissed me, Lee says. It rekindled a memory in me, maybe of my mother. I started to cry and I buried my head in the pillows so they wouldn't hear me. I think I cried half the night. The next morning he awoke to Ben shaking him and telling him to get up for breakfast. His bedroom was flooded with sunshine. I was so surprised it was already morning, Lee says. I had planned to sneak out after the house was quiet. But I felt better after a good night's sleep and figured I could run away the next night. I got dressed and went to the kitchen, following my nose to all these delicious smells. Ollie greeted him and told him they were going to eat in the dining room. "We only eat there on special occasions," she said. The table was heaped with ham, bacon, eggs, grits, biscuits, potatoes, jams, and jellies. Lee thought company must be coming, but saw only 3 place settings. After Ben motioned for him to sit, Lee immediately grabbed a biscuit and started to take a bite out of it. But Ollie stopped him. "We say grace first," she said, telling him to bow his head and close his eyes. I did what she told me, but I was wishing she would hurry up so I could eat. That food smelled so good, Lee says. Then I started to listen to her. She was thanking God out loud for the beautiful day and the recovered health of a friend who had been sick, and for the bounty of food we were about to enjoy. Then she said an amazing thing. "Father, thank you for sending our new son to us, for the privilege of allowing us to raise him. We will try to be good parents to him." I'm sure my jaw dropped in amazement. Somebody was actually thankful I was there? I had always felt like a bother to adults, but this woman was acting like she was glad I was there. I stole a glance at Ben. He smiled at me and said, "We're happy you're with us, son. Now let's eat." Lee stuffed himself. He could not remember when food had tasted so good. The more he ate, the more pleased the Nailings seemed to be. After breakfast, they said they would take him to the store they owned to get him some new clothes and then to the barber shop for that much-needed haircut. Lee clearly remembers the walk down the lane into the village. Ben and Ollie on either side of him. They stopped at each of the 6 houses along the way, and at each one they introduced Lee as our new son, and said how glad they were that he was with them. By the time Lee was fitted for some new clothes and had his hair cut, he already knew some of the villagers by name and had met several children his own age. By the end of the day, after another home-cooked meal, he had decided to give the new arrangement a chance, at least for a little while. The Nailings' house was beginning to feel like home. And this concludes Chapter 9 of Orphan Train Rider.